going on, everybody? And welcome into the
Boys Talking Ball
podcast. I'm Mitchell Raines.
Bryce Young, what's going on?
And we are here to talk everything NFL football. Who knows? We might sprinkle in a little bit about our lives. We might talk about other sports that are happening. But right now, we are knee-deep in NFL football, and that's what this podcast is all about.
Yes, sir. Week 9 coming up. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Well, I say I'm feeling good. That's because my particular team picked up its second win of the season. So, I can revel in that for at least a week.
Yeah. So maybe we should tell our audience who our teams are, why we even are fans of that team, and
Sure.
Maybe that gives some background on us. You go first.
This podcast is going to be all about NFL football, but we also are fans of our own teams individually. And so we're going to definitely sprinkle in a little bit extra Cleveland Browns talk, a little bit of extra Tampa Bay Buccaneers talk. And if you can't guess which of us is a fan of which team, I'm sure you'll find out over the course of this podcast. So stay tuned for that. But just a lot of football talk in general. We're passionate fans of the sport. We're passionate fans of our teams. And we're excited to talk.
We're also really biased as well.
We're definitely biased when it comes to our teams. And that will definitely show in this podcast. I can guarantee it. Because I know our personalities. So we're excited. But first, before we jump into anything football related, Bryce, can you give me 1 minute and tell the people about you? Who is Bryce Young?
Well, I'm not the Carolina Panthers quarterback. I am a white boy from Melbourne, Florida. I grew up here. I work for a church called Elevation out here. And I fell in love with football when I was 6 or 7 years old. It was 2002, actually 2003, technically. And the Buccaneers were playing the Raiders in the Super Bowl. I went over to my uncle's house. He was a super fan. He's got the flag tattooed onto him. He has all the merch. He's like a super fan. And I fell in love with the team then. And of course we won. And so it was easy to fall in love with them, not knowing that the next 20 years of my life were actually going to be miserable. And that we'd be plagued with terrible quarterbacks, terrible play, and losing season after losing season. And obviously, in the last few years, we've been blessed, and Tom Brady came and graced us with his absolute dominance. But outside of that, it's been pretty hard. And now you have our quarterback, and so that's all ours. That's true, and we have yours.
We switched quarterbacks over the years. No, that's great. When you talk about your fandom in particular, the word loyalty comes to mind, and I think that we share that quality in the way that we root for our teams. I've been a Browns fan since I was a kid. My dad took me to a Pittsburgh Steelers Cleveland Browns game, sat me in the dog pound when I was less than 10 years old. Anybody that's ever been to Cleveland and sat anywhere near the dog pound knows that probably not a great place for kids, but I was there and I was immediately hooked, and I love the Browns ever since. And we stayed loyal to our teams, man, through the tough years. And obviously you've experienced some tough years, but you don't have anything on Cleveland fans and the tough years that we've experienced. And I think even you would admit that. At least you got a Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowls, right, to celebrate, but you were barely old enough to understand what football was for the first one.
That is true. I
was in high school for that first one.
You guys are definitely have been given a much worse hand for sure.
Yeah, quite a bit.
I can agree with that.
But I've been a Browns fan all my life, through thick and thin, mostly thick. The organization is definitely headed in a better direction. But outside of that, I'm a singer, been on a number of platforms using my voice, working for Elevation. That's how we met. But also I work part-time for Pro Football Focus as a data analyst. So there's a passion that we are working to turn into a little bit more than that, right? And that's what this podcast is all about. So we're excited to jump in. Why don't we start with NFL breaking news? You want to talk a little breaking news of what's happening today?
Yeah, what do you got for me? I know it, but just throw those things out there. Let's talk about it.
Of course. Well, I think the biggest piece of news for the day is the news that just recently came down. The Carolina Panthers are sending wide receiver Deontay Johnson to the Baltimore Ravens in a trade. Your initial thoughts?
So my initial thoughts are, I need to know for what. Was it a bag of chips or was it actually a good value? My next thing is, go ahead.
I can tell you that the trade is a pick swap. So Baltimore is going to send a 2025 fifth round pick to Carolina for Deontay and a sixth rounder.
Okay. That's an interesting, you know what, like my hot take on this would be that's a pretty good value. If you look over the last years of Deontay Johnson, he spent a majority of his career in Pittsburgh. And you could probably point out maybe 2 or 3 solid years of production out of there. Then he went to Carolina this season, and he has 30 receptions, 357 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's not terrible, especially in an offense that's really bad. The Ravens need wide receiver help, and they got, I think, a fifth round value out of him. We'll see what he can bring. I think Zay Jones is better, so he's definitely not coming there to be the number one guy. I don't know. I think it's a good trade for the Ravens. I think they need.
You mean Zay Flowers, right?
Is that what I said?
You said Zay Jones. I believe he's a Jacksonville Jaguar. I could be wrong. I don't know where he is right now.
No, you're right. You're right. I don't know what the heck happened to Zay Jones, but that's a different topic for a different day. Yes, absolutely. Zay Flowers. And then they have the guy who was blowing us up on Monday Night Football on Monday.
Rashad Bateman.
And so they got a decent squad out there now. They also have Nelson Aguilar, but that guy can't catch anything. So it'll be interesting to see how he integrates in their offense. I don't know if he's going to be like the number one over there at all. So it's interesting. It'll
be interesting to see how it pans out. I mean, my brother is a massive Baltimore Ravens fan, so all I hear about is the Ravens personnel anytime I call him or talk to him. I think he, along with most Ravens fans, are high on their receiving core. I personally am not high on their receiving core. I do like Zay Flowers as kind of more of a shifty slot receiver. To me, Zay Flowers doesn't personify a typical NFL number one wide receiver for a squad, but he's basically been that over there. But it's more been receiving by committee, I think, for Baltimore. But when you look at Deontay Johnson and what he's going to add to this team last year, obviously, the past couple of years, honestly, in Pittsburgh, down seasons. For him, last year he had 717 yards, 5 touchdowns. The year before that, 882 yards and 0 touchdowns. The yardage was there. The touchdowns, obviously not. But then in 21, he had 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. In 2020, 900 yards, 7 touchdowns.
Season.
So you look at the stretch from 2019 to 2021 with Pittsburgh, definitely his better years. The production obviously has slipped off a bit, but you look back the past couple years in Pittsburgh, not great quarterback situations ever since Roethlisberger left. And then he goes to Carolina in a similar situation where they're trying to figure out the quarterback. I wonder how many of these 30 catches for 357 yards and 3 touchdowns came in that one massive Andy Dalton game this year. I'd be interested to see what he's done with Dalton versus what he's done with Bryce Young. But overall, I mean, I think the talent is there. I really do. Yeah. And I think he's going to help bolster this offense. He's got a quarterback now that's obviously in the MVP conversation. We know that he's good, not just on his feet, but he can throw. I'd be lying if I said he had no arm talent. I think he's proven that he's a legitimate quarterback in this league. And then, he's got the weapons around him. They've got a lot to figure out on the defensive end, honestly, but this offense was already one of the best in the league, and I think it just gets better.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think that he's also 5'10". He's a small guy. It's going to be interesting how it all plays out. He was a part of that Andy Dalton game where he caught 14 targets, 8 receptions for 122 yards and a touchdown. That was his biggest game this season. Outside of that, he has not broken 100 yards.
So a third of his yardage for the entire season came in that game. That's crazy. Yeah. And a third of his touchdowns.
Yeah.
Interesting. Look, at the end of the day, I think the price was good for Baltimore. Being a Cleveland fan, I think back to when we took Amari Cooper from the Cowboys for a 5th rounder. Everybody said, what an incredible steal. And although he doesn't play for us anymore, sad, RIP, it was a great price considering what some of the other receivers, kind of top tier receivers in the league were getting. I don't know that we would consider Deontay Johnson right now to be in that top tier of receivers, but he's definitely not far from it. And who knows, with the right quarterback, I believe he has the talent and the ability to get back to that level. So if you're Baltimore, it's worth a 5th round pick to just see. And honestly, they got a 6th rounder back. So you're talking even better value when you consider, they're just taking a chance on a guy with some upside.
Yeah. What other breaking news do we have?
Let's see. The other big piece of news, and there are actually two other updates around the league. One of them is the Colts are benching Anthony Richardson, and they plan to start Joe Flacco versus the Vikings on Sunday. What are your
Yeah.
initial thoughts on that?
Well, I've always been a Joe Flacco stan. He is elite in my opinion. Always has been, always will be. I love Joe Flacco. I think he's great. I was in high school that run where they made the Super Bowl and they won against San Francisco, and that insanity run that Joe Flacco had during the playoffs against the Broncos. That might be one of the greatest games I've ever seen. I don't know, dude. That team for the Ravens was absolutely nuts. The defense was insane, but that offense was cooking too. I like Joe Flacco. I think he's more mature. Obviously, I don't know if you saw the Micah Parsons information that just came out from his podcast, but he was talking to Trayvon Diggs and he was like, hey, next time you're tired, just lie to the media. Like, do not tell the media you left the game because you were tired. I just thought that was crazy. I thought that lacked a ton of maturity on his part. And we can analyze Anthony Richardson all day. At the end of the day, the Colts drafted this man. I don't remember what overall he was drafted, 4th overall. And the coach came out and said, hey, he is a project. And he told the fans, be patient. Now it's week 10 and he's benching him. That says a lot about your coach too. Like, okay, so you told us to be patient, but you're not patient. And I get it. Like he's great. He subbed himself out of the game. I think Joe Flacco, I know Josh Downs fantasy owners are rejoicing because every time Joe Flacco is playing, this dude Josh has an insane game. Like he loves to throw to Josh. I believe that's a rookie, right? Josh Downs?
Second year. I want to say Josh Downs is second year.
Yeah, like I'm trying to pick him up in our fantasy league. I think him and Joe Flacco have a good chemistry. Obviously, you have Michael Pittman as well. But I think that team will rally around a veteran. But I don't even know if they're willing to win right now. Like, is there? How does their division look? Is it wide open? And is putting Joe Flacco in the right move? Are they just trying to develop Anthony Richardson? I have more questions than I do like any takes on it.
When this news came down, I immediately texted a buddy of ours who is a massive Colts fan, and just to get his take. In fact, we were speaking before the news dropped. We were speaking about Richardson and what's going on, and his take was that the team is more competitive with Joe Flacco. And my pushback was, the Colts need to find out what they have in Richardson because they know that Flacco is not the long-term answer, right? Obviously, Flacco can keep you competitive, but what are you achieving with the players that are on your roster? So this is where, like, I would hate to be an NFL GM, man, because fans want to win right now. They don't care about next year, the following. They want to win right now. And if you have a good team, like I think the Colts do overall, you want to win games and compete. But, GMs and NFL ownership don't always think that way, right? They're thinking about their assets. They're thinking about what they gave up to get a guy. A 4th-round pick is a lot of value. You're spending a 4th-round pick on a player. You believe that player is going to be on your team for years to come. And so that's what they thought about Anthony Richardson. I'm not saying that they don't believe that anymore or that he can't be that. But the fans have been clamoring for some competitive play at the quarterback position. And obviously Anthony Richardson hasn't really given that. You look at his season stats through 6 games this year. He's got 958 yards, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a rating of 57.2. That is not going to get it done. And you mentioned some of the talent that they have in Indy, talking about Josh Downs, Michael Pittman. There's a lot of quality pieces there. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor coming out of the backfield. You like to think that you could compete at least for a playoff spot. You look at Joe Flacco when he's played this year, because Richardson's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. Flacco in 3 appearances, 3 games, has 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 102 rating, 716 yards overall. That's in 3 appearances. I mean, his magical play from last year continues. Again, when he was with Cleveland last year and took over the helm, it was a different team. And it's just mind-blowing to consider what we're getting out of a quarterback who is 39 years old and won a Super Bowl. It's been years, man, and it's unreal to see a guy in the league still playing at a high level.
He's elite, bro.
So we'll see what happens in Indy. I know, again, the fans are happy about the change. I wonder what ownership thinks as far as what the future looks like. But you know what? I'm a fan of competitive football. I'm a fan of winning now if you have talent, because you just don't know who's going to be on your team next year. So if a certain guy gives you the best chance to win, you need to play that guy and see what happens for the team's morale, for the morale of the fan base, and that you can continue to receive that support moving forward in the season.
I don't know if I believe you on that one. I'm not going to lie. As a Browns fan, you been
disagree?
Until Deshaun Watson went down, you did not think benching him was a good idea, though that was probably the best case scenario for your team.
I'll be honest with you. I stayed strong to that opinion. I want to say maybe the first 3 weeks. We saw some good play from Deshaun, and this isn't what this segment is about, but quickly, since you brought it up, we did see some good play from Deshaun this year. Not great play by any means, but you could tell that there were other areas on the offense, especially that were struggling. It wasn't just the quarterback. I will say, after seeing Jameis Winston play on Sunday, it looked like the whole team was good again. It just was like, man, this is last year's Browns. Like, we're competitive again. We're good. We don't have any weak spots. That's what it felt like for sure. But I think the fact of the matter is the quarterback is the most important position on the field, right? And so if you don't have that one right, it can make a lot of other areas of your offense look very bad. You know what? It can even make your defense look bad, because in the Browns case, if the defense is on the field constantly because your offense can't pick up first downs and sustain any drives, you start to see a fatigue factor take over. And the defense, one of the best defenses in the league just a year ago, has suffered this year because they're having to be on the field so many minutes. And you definitely see them getting tired, and it's just natural, right? I mean, we talk about Richardson checking himself out. He shouldn't have said that in front of a microphone, right? I mean, obviously, say something else, man. Say anything else. Say you had a limp, you had something in your knee, tweak, whatever. You need to go get checked out. You cannot say I was tired. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sure a lot of these guys feel that in a lot of moments of football games. Now, what he does moving forward, how he improves that, will be on him, and we'll see. But regardless, I think that this is a good move for the Colts, at least in the short term. You want to win games, that is the guy that can win games for you this season.
I agree.
Let's move on to our last piece of news that has come down so far today as we're recording this podcast. Texans wide receiver Stephon Diggs suffering a torn ACL in Sunday's game against the Colts, and he will be out the remainder of the season. What are your thoughts?
Well, they're definitely started the season hot with 3 incredible wide receivers. I hate to see receivers go down. I hate anybody to get injured. I think that's it sucks. I wonder, was it a turf issue or anything like that? Because that tends to be a lot of the problems. I think for the Texans, I think personally they're going to be okay. I think there's a lot of talent on that roster. I think the next man up mentality. The Bucs are suffering from the same issue. Both of our wide receivers are out right now. One out for the entire season. We won't see Mike till after our bye week. So I know that from on paper, Diggs being out, Nico Collins being out, that's tough. And Stephon Diggs as a player, he's been getting those red zone touchdowns for them. I wonder who they'll turn to. He's been getting a lot of touchdowns. It doesn't look like he's been a streaky like he was for the Bills, where they would definitely throw him some short yardage passes and he would take them to the house. Or it hasn't looked the same this season in the Texans offense, though he still played a pivotal part, and you could tell that. And so interesting to see how Tank responds to this, now emerging as the sole number one on that team. How's he going to go out there? Joe Mixon is back, though. I think as a team holistically, they'll be okay. I think that offense is good. I think CJ Stroud is a really great quarterback. It sucks for Diggs, and obviously being out for the season, you never want to hear that. For the team, I think they'll be all right, though.
I don't disagree, again, because of what we were just talking about, right? The quarterback is the most important piece on that offense, and you have one of the better quarterbacks in the league in CJ Stroud. It is insane, though, to look at the wide receiver room that the Texans were fielding in week 1 versus what it looks like now. You've lost Nico Collins to IR. Now he's scheduled to return in the next couple weeks, so that's not necessarily a season-ending thing. But you got him off the field right now with an injury. Obviously now the news about Stephon Diggs being done for the year with an injury. And you're right, Tank Dell is kind of the guy out there right now. I believe they've also got Robert Woods, a bit of an older receiver, but can still produce. Man, from a fantasy standpoint, I wish Tank Dell would do something. Man, I think I spent a 5th or 6th round pick on this guy thinking.
Didn't he have a good week last week for you?
He probably did, and I probably had him on the bench. Just that's how my fantasy season is going. But you think about like he's gonna be I'm thinking like coming into the season, man, Tank Dell's gonna be such a dynamic option for CJ Stroud and the connection that they had last year, both as rookies. And this is gonna be a quarterback wide receiver duo that we're watching for years to come. And it may still be that, but it hasn't produced thus far this season. Tank Dell not giving you much production. Obviously, from a fantasy standpoint, that's one thing. But you just want to look at from a performance standpoint for the Texans. He's not been a guy that's been reliable this year. Now he is kind of vaulted into that number one role. It'll be interesting to see this Sunday when this Thursday when they play the Jets in New York, what the coverage looks like. Will it be man-to-man kind of one-up on Dell and Woods? Will you see more attention paid to Dell versus Woods? Which one of those receivers draws more attention and which one is kind of able to eat, or are they both? I mean, I know the Jets haven't had a great season either, but it'll be interesting to see what they look like.
To your point, I think like they don't respect Tank because you're right. He hasn't produced much. I mean, last week he had a touchdown, and that's what he put up like 13 or 14 points for fantasy. And you did bench him, but I think your other wide receivers did better. I don't know. I'm not watching your fantasy that well, but to your point though, when they play the Jets, I think the Jets, first of all, the Jets have been stinking it up. Like that's definitely I think they're going to lose that game too. I don't know. Like this isn't a conversation about that matchup, but I think that they're just going to play them regularly like they've been playing all the other teams, and that's probably why they're going to lose. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see them winning that, and I don't see them putting any extra emphasis on Tank or Robert Woods, especially because I think personally, hot take, Robert Woods is washed, personally.
You think so?
100%. That dude is...
What gives you that opinion?
That man's like 80 years old, bro. That dude needs to hang up the cleats, man.
Well... I can't say I argue with you. In 5 games this year, now mind you, he didn't have any catches in 2 of the games, so this is really in 3 games of production. But he's got 5 catches, 46 yards, 0 touchdowns. That is Robert Woods' 2024 season as it stands right now. When you go over and you look at Tank Dell again in his second year coming off of that injury, obviously better production. He has through 7 games now. He's got 24 catches, 229 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Still, again, not incredibly productive when you consider he's not had he's got 1 game over 60 yards and 2 games with 1 touchdown apiece. So he's got no multi-touchdown games. I hope that this is a springboard for a young player like Tank Dell, who really is just trying to get off his feet in the NFL. He's obviously got the talent. We saw it in flashes last year. And maybe this is an opportunity with both Diggs and Collins out for the foreseeable future for him to really take off.
Yeah.
Cool. That's all the breaking news around the NFL. Why don't we move into talking about our teams? This is where I think the conversation can get juicy because we mentioned our fandom and how much we care about each of our teams. And man, I don't know about you, but it's borderline obsession for me. And I don't know if it's healthy or not. You'd have to ask my wife. A lot to talk about this season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Cleveland Browns. Why don't you, to start, give me an overview of how you think the season has gone so far for the Bucs?
I think that I was telling you yesterday, and I think that this stat is very telling of how our season's going. As an offense that is averaging 29 points a game, we are still losing games. We are 4-4 on the season. And of those 4 losses, only 1 of them did we not put up double-digit points. And it hurts to see because your offense is out there. And typically in the past, the Buccaneers, their defense is what has won us games. Like our defense is what keeps us in it. Somehow, like some way, our defense is always prevailing. But this year, it's almost done a complete 180. And now it's like our offense is trying to bail our defense out. And our defense just can't catch a break with injuries either. So this season's been tough to watch. Baker's making, a lot of plays, but there are some plays where he just throws a terrible ball and it's getting picked off. And you kind of get that with Baker, like the gunslinger. He's got, he loves to zip it, man. He loves to throw it. And so there's going to be times where he messes up and he makes mistakes. And I'm sure you know that as a Browns fan, and the world knows that as just watching him play. So it's been hard. We went to the game on Monday, and to watch the Ravens just destroy us in our defense, it was like it just could not stop Lamar and Derrick Henry. It was terrible. And then Rashad Bateman, and Lamar threw 5 touchdowns. That tells you enough. Like, that tells you all you need to know. Like, I like Lamar, but I don't think Lamar has any business throwing 5 touchdowns on any team. Meanwhile, my team. And so it's tough. And then Sunday, short week, after a really hard fought game, Chris Godwin destroyed his ankle, broke his tibia, I think, and is out for however long. Now, he did have surgery and it went well, God bless. But now we're coming off a short week and we're playing the Falcons and our creamsicles, man. We feel good. And we put up a hard fought game. Like, we put up a lot of points. Our defense, again, both corners are injured. Just these guys out there are just throwing all over us, testing us. Our second corner, our cornerback 2, actually got benched after the game. Like, head coach came out and said, hey, we're actually going to start someone else in that position now, just because he was getting burnt toast every single freaking game, which is super frustrating because you're watching, you're hoping, and we got 2 great safeties, but we don't play them like in the backfield. We play them up close. We play them like linebackers. And so in aspects it works, in others it hurts us. At the end of the day as well, a lot of it, I look back and I look at Todd Bowles, our head coach, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're a defensive head coach and our defense looks like this. Meanwhile, our offensive coordinator that we brought in, Liam Cohen, is been incredible. The play calling has been off the charts. The statistics of the offense he's been running have been breaking records for the Buccaneers. And so it's tough. It's tough to watch. This season has been up and down. When you're 4-4 right now, just like we are 50%, I'm middle of the road as well. I'm like, I still have optimism for the season. We play the freaking Chiefs Monday night next week. So almost back-to-back Monday night games, which is really weird. And we don't do good at night. We're used to playing at 1 p.m., man. So, our boys are going to be tired. I don't know.
So what I'm getting from you as far as how you feel on the Bucs 2024 season thus far, great offensive production, very poor defensive production, still plenty of hope sitting at 500. Yes?
Absolutely. I mean, after losing to the Falcons, that was a must-win game, as much as a must-win can be. And for us to lose that stung. So I do think the wind is out of our sails. But I will say, and anybody can fact check me on this, anytime we have been the underdog, we typically do prevail. Like Baker and this team love being the underdog. And so when we're going up against the Chiefs and the spread is negative 8.5, I actually like those odds. They haven't lost a game this season. They're going to lose a game at some point. Why not us? We took out the Lions. We took out the Eagles. We took off some teams that were rolling. Even at the time, the Saints were rolling and we were underdogs. So it's good to know, like, when we are the underdog, we do tend to play a lot better. So we'll see.
So I'm looking at the stats for this season. Obviously, in the NFC South, which is not a very competitive division, it's really going to be a 2-team race between the Falcons and the Bucs. Now, you mentioned you lost the tiebreaker by losing this week to the Falcons. You're 0-2 against them on the season. Here's the thing: you're sitting at 4-4. The Falcons are at 5-3. Have been wildly inconsistent this year. Kirko's had some games where he looks elite, and he's had some games where he looks
against
like
us.
Yeah, it's been against the Bucs a lot. But honestly,
he's our father.
I would I would be very surprised if Kirk Cousins feels like an elite quarterback at the end of the season. Would you agree with that? I just don't see this kind of production being sustainable. And again, I say this kind of production, he's had flashes during games, but he hasn't been able to sustain that throughout the whole season. I just wonder how far he can carry that team and how good of a team they're going to look at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's hard to answer the question because the only time I've seen him play, I have not watched a lot of Falcons games this year, were against us, and he looked like prime Tom Brady. So it's tough to say, yeah, I don't know if it can continue. I hope it doesn't. I don't want it to. And I hope there's some more primetime games where, primetime Kirk gets exposed. But at this point, I think that they do have a good team. Bijan is kind of finally, like, beginning of the season, he wasn't doing too well. The production wasn't there, but now he's rolling, and Kyle Pitts is catching touchdowns. He had 2 on us last week, and the team looks good. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, like, Their defense, Matthew Judon is playing great. If everybody else can rally around and kind of to like a Pittsburgh Steelers method where like, Russell Wilson may not be that good, but their defense or special teams are good enough where as long as Russell Wilson just manages the game in an aspect, they're going to win games. As long as the Falcons can do that, I can see them winning and winning more and more games, regardless of Kirk's production, unless he just turns the ball over a bunch. If he can secure the ball, then I think they'll go far.
So this isn't a Falcons podcast, but I just want to make my point and we'll move on. Kirk Cousins this season, quarterback rating, are you ready? Starts the season off against Pittsburgh, 59, then 117.2, then 89.7, 68.5. Then they see Tampa for the first time, 114.8. Then it's another 2 weeks of 97.2, not bad, 72.6. Tampa again, 145.9. It seems like every 3 games he has an incredible game, right? Beautiful production, no interceptions, throwing for a lot of yardage. And then he has a couple games where it's just average. If they continue in that, if he continues in that trend, I just don't see this Falcons team being serious at the end of the year. That being said, when I look at the Bucs this year, my point is that at 4-4, second in the division, I still see the Bucs as the best offense in that division, which is incredible for me to say, man, because as we've talked about, I look back to 2021, 2022 Baker, not great times, right? And I love Baker Mayfield as a player and as a human being, does so many good things for the community there in Tampa, just as he did in Cleveland, and is really just he's a fun player to be a fan of, right? But his last couple years in Cleveland, nobody can deny that they weren't pretty. Now, 2020, Baker was incredible play and was a really fun team to watch that year, but I don't think anybody had, after he left Cleveland, kind of bounced around, right? Carolina, LA, and then finally finding a home in Tampa. Nobody thought that we were going to get this out of Baker Mayfield. And good for Bucs fans, right? Because it looks great. Now, you mentioned the defensive struggles. Yeah, we were both there in person on Monday night to watch them give up, 46 points. It wasn't pretty. And obviously there's some injuries there. It's just not a great defense. I'm hoping that for your sake, that the defense can kind of find its footing a little bit, because as an offense, when you average 29 points a game, that should be enough to be better than 500. So I see the Bucs improving. I see the Bucs eventually taking a hold of that division and maybe even running away with it, depending on, again, the defensive play.
That's a really good point. I mean, even look at Baker's worst games, the Saints, the Ravens, and Falcons game. I would say even the Broncos game was really bad because we couldn't score, but I don't even think Baker played necessarily that bad. We just couldn't score. Every single one of those games, though, Baker actually has played good despite playing bad. I don't know how else to explain it. He'll throw 3 picks, but he's also thrown 3 or 4 touchdowns. And so, it's kind of like that Jameis Winston effect. You don't want the picks. You do not want the turnovers. But the ability to bounce back after like a halftime or that Saints game, it was one quarter. It was the second quarter where he threw a few picks, and that was really bad. And it looked like he just was off. He comes out after halftime, cleans it up, and we win the game. Looked great. And so I like his ability to bounce back. If you look at his numbers, he has the most passing touchdowns in the league. His QBR may have gone down a little bit, but it was great. And it still is probably averaging a really good number. I think he's got what it takes. I think this team rallies around his energy. Hit me up in a few weeks, maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and I think our record will be better. I think this conversation might be a little bit different. But right now, it is middle of the road, and we'll just see where it goes. I'm interested to see what you have to say about your 2-win Cleveland Browns. But let me just preface this. My Lord and Savior, Jameis Winston, hallowed be thy name, taking the helm. Let's talk about it.
Jameis Winston, in one game with the Cleveland Browns, he's played more than one this season. He's come in for quarterback sneak packages. He played at the end of the drubbing that we took 2 weeks ago, threw a touchdown pass, whatever. Jameis Winston against the Baltimore Ravens. Can I read you the stat line and see if it brings back any memories from your fandom of the Buccaneers? 41 attempts, 27 completions, 334 passing yards, 0 INTs, 3 touchdowns.
That don't sound like the Jameis I know. The 300 passing yards, yes. No interception. That I don't know.
Well, I love that. I love that I read the interceptions before the touchdowns, because when you do look at Jameis Winston, you do think about that, right? You think about the high number of interceptions he's had over the course of his career, and the fact that with the good, you're always going to get the bad. I'm telling you, he looked nothing but good on Sunday. Now, the Ravens lead the league in a terrible stat, and that is interceptions dropped. And they definitely had a chance to get 1 or 2 against him on Sunday. In fact, Kyle Hamilton dropped the game essentially because
I saw that
he almost picked off a pass that would have sealed it. The Ravens would have been able to take a knee and run out the clock as the Browns were driving. He dropped it. It gave us life. The rest is history. But when I look at Jameis Winston, and I compare him to Deshaun Watson over the course of this season, the Browns, one of the worst teams in the league in points scored. Up until this weekend, we hadn't scored over 20 points in a game. The Browns, the worst team in the league on third down. Third down's just absolutely horrid. The Browns under Deshaun Watson, no 300-yard passing games. Now, when I say that I thought Watson looked decent, I'm willing to admit that a lot of that was hope. And I'm also can say that some of that was fact. It wasn't all on Deshaun. You look at his season stats, the yardage isn't great. The interception number is good and low. The touchdown number is whatever. The fact of the matter is we weren't winning with him at the helm. For whatever reason, you can watch the tape, and I watched a lot of it, missing reads, not necessarily putting the ball where it should be, leaving clean pockets. So there's definitely, and 30 plus sacks. I want to say 33 sacks in 6 games. It's just not, when you look at that play, I mean, it's probably not, when it's that bad, it's probably not just one player. But the kind of common theme that we've been talking about over the course of this podcast so far is that the quarterback is the most important position on the field. And when you don't have that solidified, and when that's not a guy that can truly carry you, you're going to see production like the Browns have seen this season, sadly. It's not been a good offense, and that's obviously why we have a 2-6 record. But I'm just saying, what we saw from Jameis Winston, you make one change, you plug in one guy, and it looks like a completely different offense. Now, recent memory would tell us that this is a common thread for the Browns, right? Looking back at last season, they went through 5 quarterbacks, ultimately settled on Joe Flacco, and made a playoff run with him. So it's just incredible to see what that change in that position can do for a team. And I'm hoping, and again, this is where you look, I think fans just want to win games, right? I want to see the Browns be competitive. I want to watch on Sundays and enjoy from front to back. Now, I'm not expecting Jameis Winston to win every game the rest of the season. Certainly not expecting that. But I am expecting him to bring more competitive play to the Cleveland Browns and to the fan base. And that's what we saw on Sunday. I'm really just hoping it continues.
Yeah. I mean, I love Jameis. I also, it's a love-hate. When he played for Tampa, my best and most prevalent Jameis Winston memory, I'll never forget it. It was late in the season, I believe, and we were playing the Vikings, and this was like a really big game. This is back when the Vikings had Anthony Barr, if you remember who that is.
And Anthony Barr reference.
Yeah. So
first episode of the pod.
Because, man, this was the worst day of my life. First of all, Jameis was just throwing like so many like it was like a great game. Like I was like, oh, this game's good. And then like we were losing. He came back. We're going into overtime and we get the ball first. So now we're hot. And the first play of overtime, he throws a pick 6 to Anthony Barr. And I'll never forget like just having to pick my jaw up off the floor and just disbelief, like all the hope in the world. And that's what every Jameis Winston experience. If you're a Bucs fan, you know this because you have just experienced it. Like his 30-30 season was so dumb. It sucked, but it was so fun to watch. It felt like every single game you watched could have been a win. And that's what hopefully the Browns will get. Not obviously the heart attack and the roller coaster of emotions, but like the one thing you can count on with Jameis is that he will just sling it, and you nothing's more frustrating than watching a game on Sunday and your quarterback's just not throwing it. And he's got, it's halftime. He's got 57 passing yards or something. You're like, dude, just start taking some chances. What I love about Jameis is he takes a lot of chances. What I hate about Jameis is he takes too many chances. And so it'll be interesting to see how the Browns play. I hope you guys win some too. You told me something interesting today before we started. Give me that statistic or what your thought was. I forget.
So what I was telling you was I read a stat, and this is completely unverified, so it could be wrong. But I saw something on Twitter, or X, I guess, that said that if the Browns beat the Chargers this weekend and the Vikings beat the Colts, the Browns will be one game out of a wild card spot. So I look at that and I think, look, this is a tale of two seasons for Cleveland, and this is what it is. The first 7 weeks, Deshaun Watson era, plus one game in there of DTR. God bless his heart. Not great. 1-6. The next week after that, Jameis Winston era, 1-0. Look, I in my heart of hearts as a fan, because again, this is what you balance. There is a contingency of the fan base that would love to see us lose 8 out of the next 9 games or whatever and be in contention for that number 1 pick. That is the most miserable way to watch football, right? That is the worst way to look at the outcome of the rest of the season. And if I'm looking ahead and I'm seeing a 1-8 record on the horizon, like I'd be depressed, right? So I want to win football games now. And that means if we're in contention for a playoff spot, try to win games. I really hope that ownership can swallow their pride a little bit with the Deshaun Watson thing and recognize and realize that with Jameis Winston, this team has a chance to make the season interesting, even at 2-6, which is insane because the AFC, in contrary to the NFC, the AFC this year is pretty weak. And so if at 3-6, we can be one game out of a wild card spot, hey, let Jameis cook. That's what I say.
I just think it's crazy that you're doing the quadratic formula at week 8 for how you could possibly make a wild card when that's something people deal with like on week 17, dog. Like you're over here. We're one game from if this person beats this person or this person ties, we're one game away. Like that's crazy. Also, I just wish you the best of luck, man, as you are just grinning ear to ear about this Jameis Winston experiment. And you're going, hey, man, 1-0. So excited for the future. Like, I love you. I hope it works out for you.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Look,
our teams will not play each other in a game of consequence again unless it comes down to the Super Bowl. So as far as I'm concerned, the rest of the year, I'm rooting for your Bucs to do well, and you can root for my Browns to do well. We'll see what happens.
I'm rooting for Jameis for sure. That's my guy.
How about rooting for my Browns to do well? Can you just admit that you'll do that as a friend?
I'm rooting for Jameis. That's a good guy right there.
All right, screw the Bucs.
No, I'm just playing. I'm playing. No, I got you. Browns all day, baby. Go Dogs.
It's a family-friendly podcast. Why don't we look ahead? Let's look ahead to this week's games. Maybe make a couple of picks. For the sake of time, we don't need to worry about the spread. Let's just go straight up and make some picks. I'll go through each game individually, and then you can tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you're thinking. Okay. Maybe next week we'll be able to look back and see how we did. So let's go through these games. We kick week 9 off with Texans at Jets on Thursday night. Your thoughts?
I got Texans whooping the Jets, and I don't think the loss of Stephon Diggs is going to play that much of an issue. I don't think the Jets have the defensive power to stop Joe Mixon and that offense, even if that's just CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, Robert Woods, and Tank Dell. I think they still win that game. I know the Jets are scrappy right now. They need these wins. So there is a form of urgency there that does scare me, but I'm taking the safe pick here. I'm taking Texans.
Okay, you like Houston on Thursday night. I like the Jets. Can I say that? Just in this game. I don't necessarily like them overall, but this is a game that they need, honestly. You look at acquiring Devontae Adams from the Raiders, re-signing Hassan Reddick so that he finally gets on the field. You've got an aging Aaron Rodgers. This team is not in building for the future mode. This team is in win now mode. You don't know how many more years of Aaron Rodgers you have. It's probably 1 or less, right? If we're being honest. This team needs to win, and they need to win now. They need to figure it out. Made the coaching change. It's a team that's desperate. And because of that, I see this being a competitive game, and I might eat my words next week, but I want to say that the Jets find a way to pull it out at home against an injury-riddled Texans team. Let's move on to Sunday. In the 1 o'clock slate, we have two teams from the division that you're very familiar with, New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers.
This is an interesting game because the Saints just benched Spencer Rattler, and Taysom Hill is back. And so I don't know what QB packages they're going to run. I don't know what that game's going to look like. I think that the Saints are going to lose this game. I think Bryce Young and the Panthers get another win against the Saints. I'm not a believer of the Saints. I don't think they're good. I think that if you're benching the quarterback who was starting, like, who are they starting? If Derek Carr plays, because he is doubtful, but there is a potential that he plays. If Derek Carr plays, I got the Saints. If he's not playing, I think Carolina wins, and that's just my take.
No, I think I'm with you on that. Again, you look at Carolina, they haven't been able to win regardless of who's throwing the ball outside of, again, that one kind of miracle game from Andy Dalton. They're going back to Bryce Young, and he's coming back with one less weapon now, right? Because Deontay Johnson, we know, is in Baltimore. So when you consider that, I just think the Carolina Panthers are going to have a hard time scoring points, no matter who's quarterbacking for the Saints. Obviously, if it's Derek Carr, I like the Saints. If it's not Derek Carr and it's Taysom Hill or even a Spencer Rattler, I don't know the latest on who's going to be in that starting slot, but I see the Saints as just the overall better team here, and I would go the Saints as well. I like Saints over Panthers. Let's move on to another game in the 1 o'clock slot. We've got the Washington Commanders at the New York Giants. What's your pick in that one?
Commanders, and I don't need to explain why. It's they're a better team overall, 100%. I don't need to say much.
How about that Hail Mary win? Did you see that this past weekend?
There was a player, I forget his name, but he was taunting the crowd. And after the game, the head coach said in his press conference that it was actually his assignment to box the player out who caught the touchdown, and he wasn't there for it. He was too busy talking to fans and trying to just taunt people. And I think that was, first of all, hilarious. Second of all, just like so dumb. I would be so pissed if that was my team. I don't think I would ever get over it. But incredible play. I think it was an NFL record 12 point whatever many seconds that Jaden Daniels was in the pocket, which is never happened before. So, but it worked, and I was mad because I had the Bears winning that game.
Cornerback Tyreek Stevenson apologizes for taunting Commanders fans before Bears lost on Hail Mary. And it's crazy. You're right. I did see the video. He's literally back to the play, taunting fans in the crowd as the play is unfolding. Just not a good look. But look, this Commanders team, who'd have thought we'd be saying the Commanders are sitting at 6-2 and having an incredible season? Again, it goes back to the quarterback position, and they've got it figured out seemingly with Jaden Daniels. They look great, and you look at the other side, the Giants just cannot figure this out, right? And when you consider the importance of the quarterback role, Daniel Jones, they have given him about every single chance they can, and he's not proving to be somebody that man. Right. And I think it's probably sooner than later. I'd be surprised if they continue at the pace that they're going. I'd really be surprised that he's starting for that team later this season when you have a weapon like Malik Neighbors and you've got guys on that offense that can produce. Wan'Dale Robinson, the wide receiver core is not terrible there. Man, Malik Neighbors, one of the top young receivers in the league. You got to have somebody that can throw him the ball, and it's just not Daniel Jones. So Giants have been struggling this year. Commanders are on a hot streak. I like Washington and New York as well. Miami Dolphins at Buffalo Bills. What are your thoughts on this one? The return of Tua this past week, I should say.
Yeah, Tua returned last week, and he looked decent. Obviously, he didn't look perfect, but I'm going to pull up his stats right now. You could tell Tyreek Hill likes his quarterback, and it was a very scrappy game with the Cardinals. It came down to the wire, and Tua threw 38 times and had 28 completions for one touchdown. He got sacked once. And he had some runs there, and he finally learned how to slide. But the targets came back for Tyreek, and that's scary for opposing defenses. Like, I got the Bills on this one. I think the Bills still take care of it. I think the Bills have a better offense right now. I think they're just rolling a bit better. It's been cool to see how the Bills have been playing without Stephon Diggs. Like everybody was worried that Josh Allen have no one to throw it to, but clearly he's been making a way. I like James Cook. I like the squad. I think they win and take out the Dolphins.
Well, you think about the Bills, the recent acquisition of Amari Cooper. Man, a good offense only gets better with him. Listen to this stat, Bryce, and this is interesting and honestly incredible. We're talking about we're at the end of October. Still feels like a fairly young NFL season. The Buffalo Bills can effectively clinch the AFC East in this game versus Miami with a win. Is that not insane? And we're talking about we are still in October as the moment of this podcast is being recorded. And that's how bad that division is, right? That comes from ProFootballNetwork.com. Wow,
Goodness.
the Buffalo Bills is an offense that I have loved since the beginning of the season, mainly because Josh Allen to me is the front runner for MVP. Now, the Dolphins obviously are more competitive with Tua at the helm than they were with any of the other quarterbacks that they trotted out over the past few weeks. Just really, really awesome to see Tua back and playing again this year. If you watched that injury live earlier this season, obviously it was scary. And, you know, the NFL world debated back and forth, up and down, in about every direction you could go as to whether he should play again. And here he is. And not only that, but he played well. The team scored a season high in points at 27, and yet they still lost to Kyler Murray's Cardinals. That's wild to me. But I really do love the Bills this season. Really, no matter what the matchup is, I definitely love them here against Miami. I'm going Buffalo all the way.
Okay.
Let's move on to a game I'll obviously be watching closely. The Los Angeles Chargers in Cleveland to take on the new look Cleveland Browns. Your prediction?
My prediction for this game is I think the Chargers are playing good, but I don't think they're great. I think that you just came off a game playing one of the best teams in the league right now, the Ravens, and beating them. That's got to get the Chargers a little scared, and they got a lot of people questionable for playing on Sunday. It is very possible the Browns win this game. If I had to put money on it, if I had to put my life on it, I would probably take the Chargers, but I'm very optimistic. I think the Browns could win this game. So I'm just going to, in the nature of this pod, I'm going to say that I got the Browns winning against the Chargers, but I think it's a close game. I think like they only win by maybe a last minute touchdown or field goal.
You know, obviously I'm biased, but if I'm just taking my fandom out of it, I haven't loved the Chargers all season, especially not on the offensive side. I thought what they did in the offseason, shipping out most of their offensive weapons, was a bit puzzling for me. Now we have gotten to see a bit of a resurgence of J.K. Dobbins, which has been cool if you're just an NFL fan. Obviously, not as cool if you're a Browns fan heading into this one, where the Browns have had some issues stopping the run this season. But Justin Herbert, to me, doesn't look like the guy we'd all thought he'd be. And I'm not sure if that's because of the lack of weapons on the outside, or if it's just this is going to be who we have to get used to as far as Justin Herbert's concerned. Obviously, they made the head coaching change, and John Harbaugh comes in to take over the team. They're sitting at 4-3 right now. To me, I mean, the Chargers are just meh, you know? I mean, they're not super exciting. They're obviously not terrible. They're just average. And I think with the resurgence of the Browns, as we've seen them, and Jameis going into his second week as the full-time starter and really taking charge of this offense, look, the Browns defense is still elite. And I think with a quarterback now that can sustain drives and keep the offense on the field and keep that defense rested, the defense is strong and can show up. Now, I like it that the Browns are at home this week, where obviously they haven't played that well. They haven't played well anywhere, let's be honest. But I'd rather be at home than in Los Angeles for this one. I like the Browns at home to squeak out a win against the Chargers.
Okay.
Let's move on to the Patriots, New England Patriots, heading into Tennessee to take on the Titans. This would be a snoozer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Snooze fest of the week, man. Is there any way I could say they both lose? I think they I don't like either of them. Who I do like, though, is this guy named Ramondre Stevenson. Earlier in the year, head coach Gerard Mayo was like, hey, we're going to bench him, switching him to running back 2 because of his fumbling issues. And then the very game they bench him, Ramondre Stevenson has a great game. And I'm biased because I got him on my fantasy. I'm starting him this week. I think Patriots win that game. I will say Mason Rudolph throwing to Calvin Ridley is scary. I don't like how he's just balling out in that regard. But I don't think they have what it takes. I don't like Tony Pollard. I think he sucks. Like, these are just hot takes. This is my totally blunt thoughts. I think the Patriots win just because of Ramondre Stevenson alone.
The storyline for this game, I think, is going to be the quarterback position and more importantly, who's playing for each team. You mentioned Mason Rudolph has gotten the start for a couple weeks now in place of Will Levis with that shoulder injury. But I believe when Will Levis is healthy, the Titans want him to be the starter. You look at the other side of the ball, and the Patriots obviously made the change to Drake May partway through the season. Jacoby Brissett is a formidable quarterback, but he's not going to be a guy that necessarily leads you to the playoffs. He's more of a stopgap option. I think Drake May has a lot of upside, but obviously suffered a concussion last week, couldn't play the rest of the game. His status for this week, questionable. If it's a Drake May start and a Mason Rudolph start, I like the Titans at home. If it is a Drake May start and a Will Levis start, I kind of like the Patriots. If it is a Jacoby Brissett start and a Mason Rudolph start, give me the Titans at home. And if it's a Kobe Brissett start and a Will Levis start, we're definitely going to have to come back to this to see what exactly I said. But if it's Brissett versus Levis, give me the Patriots. I don't even remember what I just said. We're going to have to run back the receipts. I'm considering the quarterbacks. There's obviously a lot more to consider. Look, this is 2 bad teams. It's not consequential. Let's move on to our next game in the 1:00 slot. You've got the Cowboys at Falcons. Your prediction.
Okay, let me just say this. Falcons have been rolling and obviously look really good. And the Cowboys have not been. Though the Cowboys are 3-4, that means they've been winning some games. I hate the Falcons right now. So I have Dallas winning. I think CeeDee Lamb goes crazy. I don't know how it's going to happen. I think Dak has been playing some pretty bad football. I think the team gets it together. I think I think this is a heat check for the Falcons. I think they lose to a pretty bad Cowboys team. And I think the Cowboys need this win more than the Falcons do. And I think they show it. They win that game.
The Cowboys schedule after this weekend over the next 3 weeks, okay? You've got obviously the Falcons this weekend, but moving beyond that, they got the Eagles coming to town. They got the Texans coming to town, and then they go to Washington to play the Commanders. They're sitting at 3-4 right now with 3 massive games coming up, 2 of which are in their conference. They have to win this game. They cannot drop a game to the Falcons, again, who record-wise is a good team this year, but again, I just don't see them being super consistent over the course of this season.
Right.
Now, what Falcons team is going to show up, right? What Kirk Cousins, namely, is going to show up? Is it going to be the 100-plus quarterback rating quarterback that we've seen? Is it going to be the guy that's kind of average? We'll see. Ultimately, even though the Cowboys have been struggling, even though they've had injuries, even though they've got some distrust and a bit of disrest in that locker room, I just got to think that they're looking ahead, and maybe they're not. Maybe this is something I'm doing as a fan, but they're looking ahead and thinking this is an important game before we head into a big 3-game stretch. I like the Cowboys over the Falcons in a close one, but give me the Cowboys winning. Moving on, we have the Las Vegas Raiders at Cincinnati Bengals. Your thoughts?
I think the Raiders suck. I think the quarterback situation is awful. I think Gardner Minshew starting 1 week, bench the next. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what they're doing. I got the Bengals. Jamar Chase legacy game incoming. I like how Jamar Chase is being used in this offense this season as well. If you've been watching, he's been a lot more of a gritty like slot guy, and they've been throwing him short passes, and he's been taking them to the house. And I know his game is very diverse. But in the past, I feel like I've seen him being more of like a Justin Jefferson, just like streak, and he's going to get open. I like how he's playing. I like how they're using him. I like how their offense is clicking. And I honestly see the Bengals going on quite a bit of a little run. They started the season terribly, like awfully. And for them to bounce back and win, I think they're at 3 games won right now. I think they beat the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are a good team. So
Right.
I think they lose this week. I think the Bengals lucked out with the schedule they have, because it looks like, I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like, but I think that the Raiders are not good. I think they win that game.
The difference in record between these two teams is 1 game. You have the Bengals sitting at 3-5. You have the Raiders at 2-6. But that does not tell the story of these two teams. The Bengals are far and away the better team in this matchup. The Raiders are an incompetent football team, and the fact that Cleveland lost to them earlier in the year says all that you need to say about our start to the year. But, man, they cannot figure out at quarterback who they want to ride with and who they want to stick with. I believe right now it's Aiden O'Connell. I don't know if Gardner Minshew, I believe he was benched.
No, he's been playing the last 2 weeks.
Either way,
yeah.
whether you put Gardner Minshew in there or Aiden O'Connell, this team cannot produce any sort of offensive production, and they don't put themselves in a good spot to win. The Bengals, on the other hand, a rough outing last week, and you saw Jamar Chase with some good productivity, but the rest of the offense was somewhat non-existent, and the defense might as well not have shown up. I did not expect the Eagles to go into Cincinnati and drop 37. And so, it's been an up and down season for the Bengals. They really have a lot to figure out still. But
yeah,
what a great week to figure things out when you're playing a team like the Raiders. Obviously, give me Cincinnati all day long in this one.
Yeah, I think they bounce back too.
We have the Denver Broncos at the Baltimore Ravens. Your thoughts?
Okay, so this game, I think people are underestimating. I think this is going to be a great game. And I think we all have bought into the Broncos defense. Broncos defense has looked great. They're sitting at 5-3, man. The Broncos are actually playing great. And Sean Payton is a great, defensive-minded coach. Here's what I think is going to happen, though. I think that the Broncos have never faced this season an offense like the Ravens. And yes, they are very good against the pass. They've been playing great against the pass. I think the Ravens come in there, and I think they blow the Broncos out. I think it's going to be a massacre. I don't think they have what it takes to stop the Ravens. When we came to town, we didn't even score a touchdown. They took care of the Bucs. They've been taking care of a lot of opponents defensively. But like I said, I don't think they've played an offense like this yet. And of course they're aware of that and they're planning for it. So we'll see. But I've seen what that 1-2 punch looks like personally. I do not see the Broncos being able to stop them. But here's the flip. You got the Ravens, who have the worst secondary in the league right now, and their starting corner just got injured, and he's questionable/doubtful for this game. I'm just thinking to myself, though, I don't know if their offense is going to be able to outmatch their offense, and I don't think their defense is going to be able to stop them either. Though they do have a good shot. It's going to be a good game. I think it's the game for the 1 p.m. slate. I think that's the game of the week for sure.
I would love to see this as a competitive game. I just don't think it's going to be, and here's why. The Broncos boast one of the best defenses in the league, as you were saying, led by Patrick Surtain and on the back end. And the Ravens come into this game with one of the best offenses in the league. Obviously, MVP candidate Lamar Jackson just picking up Deontay Johnson. So adding a little bit of firepower to that offense. That side of the ball for each team is going to be very interesting to watch. You look at the other end, though, the Broncos offense has very much struggled at times this year. They've had a couple of games where they've produced, but for the most part, it's been an up and down year for rookie quarterback Bo Nix going up against a Ravens defense that has also struggled, right? Especially in the back end with injuries to both of their corners, actually Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins. Not sure if they're going to be getting either one of those guys back for this game. We'll have to see later in the week how that unfolds. Ultimately, with the Ravens being at home, I don't see this as being a close game. I like the Ravens running away with this one against Denver.
Great.
All right, let's go into the 4 o'clock. Sorry, did you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, my laptop's about to die, so
plug that sucker in.
Facts.
Do you need a extension cord? I have one in here.
Yeah, probably.
All right, let me get it to you. All right, you powered? There it is.
Dude, look how messed up these are.
Yeah, they've been through some stuff.
I bought new covers. They're coming should be coming soon.
Getting to the 4:00 slate of football games now, we've got the Chicago Bears heading into Arizona to take on the Cardinals. What are your predictions here?
Okay, for the 4 p.m. slate, this is one of my games of the week. Now, the 4 p.m. slate this week is really, really good. Like you might want to throw Red Zone on or have multiple games playing because you got the Bears, you got the Lions and Packers, you got Rams and Seahawks. It's going to be a great, great Sunday for football. I personally like the Cardinals in this matchup. The Bears are coming off a heartbreaking loss, and I know they're going to be scrappy coming out of this. But Marvin Harrison is coming off of a week of slowly coming back, and he had great production last week after his injury. I think he only does better this week. I don't think the Bears have the secondary to stop Marvin Harrison, but also Kyler Murray has been playing great on the ground running. You know, that little munchkin loves to just take off. And so he looks like a little midget, but he's good,
Sheesh,
dude.
Man. What do you got against Kyler?
Man, I'm a short king myself, bro. I'm just saying. When he runs, he looks like he stole something. But I like the Cardinals at home in this matchup. Here's my only caveat. I think that DeAndre Swift, which I called in the beginning of the season, has been playing great the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like he really has brought it in. I think that he'll have another great week against the Cardinals. I don't really necessarily think there's anybody on the Cardinals defense that stands out. I think they do win, though. I think the more experience, again, this whole podcast has been about the quarterback position. I think that Caleb Williams, being the younger guy, loses to this Kyler Murray-led offense. And that's just my prediction.
I like Caleb Williams, man. As the number 1 overall pick, there's obviously a lot of pressure that comes with that. And when you're thrown into the fire immediately, you're expected to produce. That means they think that you can have success in the offense. And he's had that this year, right? They're sitting at 4-3. It's been up and down, but what I will say about Caleb Williams and really the team as a whole is that they've been in every game. It's not been a game where they have necessarily lost the grasp or didn't have a chance at winning. And so I really like what Caleb Williams is doing for this team. You look on the other end at Arizona, and man, to me, this is a streaky team, right? In their losses, they fail to score 20 points in every single one of their losses. In most of their wins, -1, they score well over 20 points. I believe they've had a 40-point game, a 30-point game this year. So what offense are we going to see on Sunday? And I think if you get that good offense with Kyler Murray leading the way, obviously, if you get that quality offense where they are efficient and playing well, I like them against Chicago, but it just depends on what we're going to see. The other thing is that the defense in Chicago has been pretty good this year. I believe it's a top 5 defense in the league. And, man, this is a tough one. This is kind of a toss-up. I think I prefer to go Chicago on the road here. I like the Bears going into Arizona and getting the win. Let's move on to the 4:00 slate. We've got the Jags headed to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles.
All right, here's my take, and I want this to be known. I think the Eagles are going to whoop the Jaguars, and I think Doug Peterson gets fired Sunday. Send that man into retirement.
I wouldn't be surprised. The redemption game for Doug Peterson coming into Philadelphia as the former Eagles head coach. Obviously, we know this season has just been bad for the Jags, right? They're currently sitting at 2-6 and really have struggled to see any sort of consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And when you look at the quarterback that they have, they got some decisions to make after this year, right? Like, what does their future look like with Trevor Lawrence? Yeah. Obviously, they paid him a lot of money, so that may not be a move that they make as far as the quarterback is concerned. But you see them every year trying to be active in the offseason to put weapons around him. And the record just doesn't equate to the work that they've done to improve the roster. And so I could see that with a loss this week. I could see that happening. I agree with you. The Eagles, I believe, handle the Jaguars pretty easily this week. I like the Eagles to win. Yeah. Moving on, we have the Los Angeles Rams in Seattle to take on the Seahawks. What are your thoughts?
Man, so I called the Rams pulling the upset on, was that Thursday night last week? You did,
yep.
And I think that they come in, and I know the Seahawks are 4-4. I think the Seahawks fall to 4-5 and the Rams go to 4-4. I think this offense, it just looks entirely different when Kupp and Puka are back in. And they have that running back. I forget his name off the top of my head.
Kyron Williams.
Kyron Williams, dude, he is just balling this season. This team looks entirely different with these two wide receivers starting. And I think we saw it on Thursday. I think we'll see it on Sunday. I do like the Seahawks, though. I do like Geno Smith, but they just came off a bad loss. Are they going to fight back? Are they going to come back being chippy? I don't know. I think DK Metcalf's a great receiver. I don't know what their injury report looks like. I know that they got a lot of guys that are injured, but so do the Rams. It'll be interesting to see. I think this is a really, really good game, divisional matchup, but I do have the Rams winning this one.
These are two teams I can't figure out. Seemingly, I thought the Rams were headed for a really down year with the injuries, and then just haven't been great this year. Right now, they sit at 3-4. On the other side of the ball, you have the Seahawks at 4-4. All of this amazing talent, the resurgence of Geno Smith. Last year, a team that I think everybody thought could really make some waves in the NFC this year, and they're at 500. So I don't know what I'm going to get out of the Seahawks. I don't know what I'm going to get out of the Rams. So my prediction is I'm going to vote for the 12th man in Seattle there, the crowd to have an effect, and I'm going to go Seahawks at home over the Rams.
Who's next?
Let's move on. We've got probably in my opinion, the game of the week. We've got the Lions in Green Bay to take on the Packers.
Yeah, that game's interesting because Lions just came off a absolute steamroll over the Titans, but the Packers are no Titans. I don't think the Lions should come in this game with any sort of ego or pride that, we just took out the Titans and we put up. If Jared Goff is coming out and throwing for 85 yards on the Packers, they will lose. Josh Jacobs, the last 2 weeks, has looked great at the running back position. Jordan Love is looking great. This team is good, man. And I think Jordan Love might have gotten injured last week, if I'm not mistaken. I think he came back in, though. The Jaguars almost won that game, though. Yeah.
The report from ESPN was that the Packers, Jordan Love, avoided a serious groin injury. So he definitely is injury, I believe, listed as questionable right now heading into that one.
So if Jordan Love plays, which I think we all think he will, this is a big game. They need their quarterback there for that one. I think the Lions have a good squad. It's tough. I wish both could lose for the NFC's sake, but I think I'm going to take the Lions losing this one. And my hot take is that Dan Campbell makes a really dumb decision late in the fourth quarter that costs them the game. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think we can both agree if Jordan Love does not start for the Packers, the Lions roll. Yes?
Agreed.
Okay. So that out of the way, let's say we have Jordan Love versus Jared Goff. This Lions team is really good. This is a really good offensive unit. Now, obviously, you have the factor of playing at Lambeau. The Packers have won a lot of their games in really close games this year. Now they've played a decent schedule. They've also went through the Jordan Love injury. So all things considered, to be sitting at 6-2 after the adversity that they faced this year is, I think, something. But, I look at this team in Detroit. This is a team that I think is a Super Bowl contender and quite possibly the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC. And because of that, I like the Lions to pick up the win in Green Bay.
Okay.
Let's move on to the Sunday night game. 8:20 p.m. prime time. You have the Joe Flacco-led Indianapolis Colts at 4-4, headed into Minnesota to take on the Vikings at 5-2. Your thoughts?
When I look at this game, I look at this game in a unique way. First of all, Joe Flacco, we were just talking about him earlier. I think he's good. I think he still has a lot in the tank. You saw him in Cleveland last year. He had a lot of good games, but he had some bad games too. I think as he gets the nod to start on Sunday night, I think he goes out there and I think the Colts win. I like the Colts in this matchup. They're healthy. There's hardly any injuries on that roster. Jonathan Taylor's playing, and like I said, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman. I like the squad. I also think after a devastating loss the Vikings had on Thursday, with the extra time they've had to prepare, I still think they lose to the Colts. I actually don't believe in the Vikings as much as everyone else does. I don't think Sam Darnold's a good quarterback. I think they get humbled. I think on Sunday night, we see Joe Flacco. First of all, Joe Flacco in primetime, he's used to this. this is not something that's new to him. I think he stays calm, cool, collected. I like the Colts. I know they're playing in Minnesota. I do not care. Give me the Flacco Colts for the win.
I'm glad you say that about Sam Darnold, because my first question to you was going to be, am I crazy for just not really feeling high on Sam Darnold this year? I just don't. And I know because of their first 5 games and going undefeated, a lot of people were real high on this team, the resurgence of Sam Darnold. Should we be talking about Sam Darnold as an MVP candidate? Look, they've lost their last 2. They've lost their last 2, one in a very close game to the Lions, but then of course, we talked about last week them losing against the Rams on the road. I think Minnesota is going to start to come back down to earth a little bit here. When you're going to start to see the real Minnesota Vikings, in my opinion. Not going to be popular amongst Vikings fans, but that's just my take. I just feel like it's an average football team. And so when you look on the other side and you look at Joe Flacco in a dome, man, that's a scary thought. So Colts at 4-4. With the change at quarterback, I think that's going to give them a little extra boost and some momentum. I'm going to go with you. I like the Colts to beat the Vikings in Minnesota. One final game, Monday night, prime time. Your Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed into Arrowhead to face the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs at 7-0. Bryce, your takes.
Well, Tampa's coming in here after 2 losses as extreme underdogs. Nobody likes the Bucs in this matchup. Here's what I'll say. Look at the last couple of games that Tampa has played the Chiefs in. We have beaten them. We have had their number quite recently. And not saying that this is the case this time, but at 7-0, at some point, the Chiefs are not going undefeated this season. That is just not happening. I almost look at it at a superstition level. At some point, someone's got to hand them a loss. Why not us? We're scrappy. I know Mike Evans is out, but also Juju Smith-Schuster is out. The only person I'm worried about, and I might even start him in fantasy this week, is Xavier Worthy. Now, I know that he hasn't had an insanely flashy season. He caught a touchdown last week, but our secondary is in trouble and we don't have speed back there. So if they just send this guy on a fly route, I'm scared that we're not going to be able to handle that. And so defensively, I'm a little worried, but Patrick Mahomes has not been looking good. If we pull up Patrick Mahomes stats over the whole season, the fact that they're winning games is witchcraft. I don't understand how they're winning games. I think Tampa Bay wins this game as a completely biased fan. And my reason is you got an underdog Baker and you got a really poorly playing Patrick Mahomes against a defense that has been getting his number the last few years. And so that's where my take is. I know I'm in the minority here, but I got Bucs.
Listen, I can't side with you on this one. And as much as it pains me to say, no, you're right. Patrick Mahomes has not had the season that I think many fantasy owners have hoped that he would have. I believe in our league, he's a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. Nobody even has this guy on his team. So that goes to show you the difference in the year it's been for Patrick Mahomes. Despite that, this is an undefeated team that just acquired DeAndre Hopkins. Whatever your thoughts are on him, that is a significant weapon for them to add on the outside, especially when you consider how down this Bucs defense has been. And then look, if you were going in there fully tooled with Evans and Godwin, I might have a different opinion because of the way that this Bucs team has been playing offensively. But without your 2 top weapons and a defense that's really struggling, I don't think Baker Mayfield to Kate Otten is going to be enough this week. Give me the Chiefs on Monday night. And I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we probably will lose, to be honest, but high hopes, baby. High hopes.
It's the NFL, man. Week-to-week league, anything can happen. So here's to a little bit of Buccaneers magic for your squad on Monday night.
Thank you.
Hey, this has been fun. Episode 1. We hope y'all enjoyed it as much as we did. Obviously, the goal is to improve and get better. If you're a Browns fan, to improve and get better as a fan of the Bucs, to improve and get better as podcasters. We're going to hopefully do all 3 in the next coming week. But we look forward to a fun rest of the year.
Of those.
It's very true. Such is the life of an NFL fan. No control over your team, yet so much passion and so much at stake. Hey, it's been fun. Appreciate you, Bryce. Appreciate everybody for listening. We'll be back next week to recap this week's games and to talk more NFL football. But until then, we'll see you next week.
Over and out.